Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Happy Thursday. I hope you guys are having a good week and keeping your heads held high. So this is my attempt number 3 at recording this video because in the previous versions, I was really letting my mood shine. Anyway, it's the end of the week, so let's take a look at what has changed in the freight market. We will take a look at diesel prices, volumes in the general market, rejections, and then we'll go into specifics for dry vans, reefers, and flatbeds to see where the relatively better markets are. Ready? Let's go! All right, first starting with capacity. As you can see, week over week, we lost 253 carriers net, which is still indicative of the fact that more carriers are leaving than are coming into the industry. However, there is a pattern that is forming. I'm sure you see it already. Less and less carriers are actually leaving week over week, which is a little bit concerning. I know it sounds horrible, but the reality is, in order for a market correction to happen, we do need to see more carriers leave, and currently we are not seeing it. Given the state of the freight market at the moment, if this pattern continues, we're in trouble. Next, we have spot versus contract carriers, and the pattern showing a squeeze still continues. Over a span of a week, contract carriers lost another 3 cents per mile and are currently earning about 48 cents per mile more than those spot carriers. Volume-wise, we're still way higher than 2023 levels, which is the blue line. However, as you can see, they have been on their way down over the past month, which is a little bit concerning. Not so much though, because we have to remember it is February, a dead month to say the least, and hopefully in mid-March, we're going to start see those volumes tick up again. In terms of rejections are definitely a disappointment. And as you can see, while we're still above 2023 levels, we see that over the past 2 weeks, rejections have been going down. Although over the past day, there was a small uptick. Currently, we are at 4.81% rejection, which is a decrease of 0.35% week over week. Now, diesel is absolutely horrific at the moment, and we're seeing a national average of $4.11 per gallon. But the price is actually not as scary as the trend, right? We can see it made such a sharp U-turn in the wrong direction. Now, the scary part is also that we are again in a situation where we're seeing rejection rates decrease while the expenses increase, and it's absolute nonsense. Okay, now let's look at some specifics, starting with dry vans, starting with spot volumes. So on the spot market, we see that there is a downward trend that is continuing, and we are below 2023 levels when it comes to the amount of loads available on the spot market. Now, I personally don't work with dry vans anymore, so to my dry van folks, I have a question. How are you guys doing? Because we can see that rates also took a turn for the worse again and are now below the $2 per mile mark on average. We are currently seeing $1.95 on average, which is a 15-cent decrease week over week. So the next question is, well, how can we make the situation more bearable? So where do we need to go next week in order to find relatively better opportunities as dry van operators? So let's take a look at our favorite 4 maps again, my favorite 4 maps: outbound tender rejections, volumes, load to truck ratios, and inbound tender rejections. So number 1 is Twin Falls, Idaho, with a 44% rejection rate, which is double from last week. The volume is at an index of 72, also an increase, more loads than trucks, and inbound rejection is at 37%, also almost double from last week. So this market got better for dry vans week over week. Next, we have Green Bay, Wisconsin, which is pretty much the same as it was last week. 15% rejection, volume of 66, more loads than trucks, and 15% rejection of loads going into Green Bay. And finally, we have a new market, Omaha, Nebraska, with a rejection of 17%, volume of 56, more loads than trucks, and 12% rejection for loads going into Omaha, Nebraska. All right, now that we've talked about dry vans, let's talk about reefers, starting with spot market volumes. Now, unfortunately, there are less loads than in 2023. The volumes are still going down for reefers on the spot market. So I am 100% sure there's going to be a question. How is it possible that in the general freight market, volumes are above 2023 levels, as are rejections, but on the spot market, we're seeing volumes that are below 2023 levels? Extremely valid question, and I'm going to answer it at the end of the video. Going back to reefers, rates are still going down and currently are at $2.26 per mile, which is an 11-cent decrease week over week. So where do you have to go next week if you have a reefer? Unfortunately, there is just the one market that is relatively better, and that is Twin Falls, Idaho. Rejection of 18%, down from 24% last week. Volume of 35. There are more loads than trucks, and 23% rejection for inbound loads. For all other markets, again, it's a choice, right? You're either in a market where there are a ton of loads, a ton of volume, but the rates are really bad, or you're in a market with very limited volume, but when a load does come out, it's going to pay relatively better if a load does come out. Some of these markets include Fargo, North Dakota, and Bismarck, North Dakota. All right, last but not least, we have flatbeds. After 4 weeks of volumes being pretty much flat, we are seeing an increase for the first time in 4 weeks. However, still below 2023 levels. Unfortunately, this did not translate into rates, and rates went down by 2 cents from last week to $2.35 per mile. This is strange considering if we look at the 5-year pattern, the dotted line, rates should be climbing, but at the same time, we have to remember, as the weather gets more manageable, more flatbed capacity will end up in the market. All right, let's talk about where flatbeds need to go, and we're going to start by looking at load volumes. So some significant differences from last week. Arizona, Arkansas, Louisiana, Florida, Maine, Maryland, Tennessee, and Kentucky saw volume increases, especially Maryland. Someone has to tell me what happened in Maryland, but there was a significant increase in the amount of freight. Now, the amount of freight decreased in Nebraska, North Dakota, and Iowa. Next, let's look at capacity, how many trucks there are in each of these markets. So some significant differences is Arizona, Utah, North Dakota, Minnesota, Iowa, Arkansas, Louisiana, Georgia, Florida, and then a lot of the Midwest and some of the eastern states, they saw capacity increase. There are more trucks there than last week. But there was a decrease in the amount of trucks in Washington, Nevada, Montana, and Kansas. Now, these two maps are really there to just satisfy our curiosity, right? But what we really need to know is the load to truck ratios, because that's what tells us where the negotiating power lies. So as a reminder, red means less than a load per truck over capacity. Orange is 1 load per truck, yellow is 2 loads per truck, and green is over 3 loads per truck. In general, the market did get slightly better. There are more places with 3 loads per truck. Maryland and Louisiana joined Mississippi and Alabama for the 3 loads per truck. Idaho, Nevada, South Dakota, and Montana got slightly better, but Utah absolutely died, as well as a lot of the northeastern states. They became much worse. Now, last week I looked at the general load to truck ratio for flatbeds to see what it looks like, what the capacity looks like. And last week I found that the load to truck ratio on a national level was 0.93, meaning that there is less than 1 load per truck for flatbeds. This week, it's 0.99, so slightly better, but still less than 1 load per truck. So now back to the question, how is it possible that in the general freight market, the volumes are higher than in 2023, the rejections are higher than 2023, but it doesn't translate into the spot market volume? Well, the thing we have to remember is that spot market loads do not always originate from rejected freight by contract carriers, right? There are some shippers who rely on the spot market in order to grab better opportunities. They never even offer those loads to contract carriers. Something we have to remember is that as shippers are anticipating the turn in the market, they will not be as likely to rely on the spot market. That's number one. Number two, contract carriers are getting squeezed and shippers want something that is comfortable. What is comfortable? When they have predictability, contract carriers. And considering that the price paid to contract carriers is less, of course, some of them will be turning to those contract carriers instead of the spot market. Number three, over the past few months, we have been reading that a lot of shippers are starting to expand their own private fleets in order to save on transportation costs. So they are not looking to hire outside carriers as much. So I hope that made sense. It made sense in my head at least. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a fantastic weekend. Stay safe, stay healthy, and keep learning. See you in the next video.